Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. As always, if you enjoy these videos, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And our first story of the day is by Swollen Left Thumb. You expect us to be punctual? Okay, we got it. He was irritated to come out to a secretary's desk and find she wasn't yet seated. She was in the lounge putting away her coat, and then fixed herself a cup of coffee, and she sat down at 8:36 instead of 8:30. It happened to be a morning of extreme stress, and he really needed all hands on deck that morning. Got it, but he was very short-sighted. The 6 minutes didn't change the course of the day, but his memo to staff certainly did. He circulated a memo to all staff which said something to the effect of, "The day begins at 8:30, not 8:36 or 8:40, or when you found a parking space, or when the coffee was ready. If you need more time, plan your day accordingly and make your cup of coffee and find your spot and hang up your coat earlier than normal. 8:30 means in your seat at your desk, ready for the day's work to begin, not coming through the door." Okay, we got it. Well, I was a paralegal at the time, and I put in so many more hours than the 40 hours I was paid for. I arrived early, left late, frequently delayed lunch, often didn't take breaks on busy days preparing for trial. Every single employee was grumbling, not just the secretary. As it happened, I was the most affected, in a positive way actually, by this policy memo because I was the staff member who had the most lost time from working beyond my schedule. I was never late, so he didn't have a problem with me, but he also abused my time more than anyone else. There were months where I never took so much as a coffee break. Often ate lunch at my desk while working, seldom left at closing time, often came in on Saturdays or Sundays to help get ready for Mondays. I just always shrugged it away and took it as part of the industry. A trial litigation practice is stressful and schedules need to be fluid. He didn't appreciate that, so we responded as a group of 16 employees with total solidarity. We were at our desks at 8:30 a.m. We left our desks promptly at 5:30. We took our breaks and our lunch hours exactly on time. It was a disaster. I was the first to respond. "Sorry, I can't help right now. My lunch is 12 to 1 and I have to stand up at 12 and sit back down at 1. So this copy project would make my lunch 12-ish to 1-ish. I'll start on this at exactly 1:01 p.m. when I'm back at my desk." I also left at exactly 5:30 p.m. I stood up, put the cover on my typewriter, and cleared my desk. He said, "Can you just..." and some paperwork in his hands. "No, I'm sorry. My day begins promptly at 8:30 and ends exactly at 5:30. I'll help with that tomorrow." I left. Everyone did the same. All week. "No, I'm sorry. I'm required to take a 10-minute break in this hour." "No, I'm sorry. My lunch begins in 15 minutes at 12 o'clock, and that's 30 minutes of dictation you want transcribed. I'll begin exactly at 1 o'clock when I'm in my seat and at my desk." He realized the petty nature of his memo to staff within 2 business days and sent around an apology memo within a week of disastrous results. He then sent us all out for an extended lunch of 2 hours on the house. He didn't come. His memo said, "Go complain about your boss over a 2-hour lunch on me." If you were working for a boss and they had some kind of stickler update memo like this, and then at the end they apologize, they give you an extra long lunch and they say, "It's on me, have a good time, we'll go back to normal," would that make up for it in your eyes for all the wrongdoing that they did? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by a Fuzzy Dob. "We don't pay you to be 2 minutes late. Over the course of a year, it's hundreds of dollars." Then I find out an interesting detail. I've worked at many retail chains, have had many terrible bosses. Here's one story that I think I can give up without any repercussions. At a small specific retail store, 5 to 6 years ago at this point, I was confronted by my old boss on a specific event that I was late by 2 minutes. Previous day, he had asked me to come in on my day off, and at an earlier time than I normally do. I agreed to come in on my day off and work a shift I'm not normally used to, but it's retail. It can't be that difficult. My old boss asked me to work 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., and I showed up at 7:02 a.m., which in my state, there's a 5-minute window for everyone, and this was 100% not a habit of mine at all. I'm normally one to show up 5 minutes early every day and wait aside by the time clock. I clocked on and walked to my department with a drink I had already purchased the previous day. As I walked into the department, the manager greeted me, then said, "When I schedule you at 7 a.m., I expect you to be in department by 7 a.m., not a minute later. We can't pay you to clock on, buy something, and then start working. Over the course of a year, that adds up to hundreds of dollars of lost labor for one individual." I told my old boss that my drink was from the previous day and that I just clocked on 2 minutes late. My old boss replied with, "That's not my problem. You need to plan better. You were scheduled at 7 and we're losing cost of labor each minute you're not here. Be in department at the scheduled time." Which is not true. I spoke regularly with a payroll employee, and she explained to me quite some time prior that the company does not pay you 3 minutes before or after your scheduled time. So if you clock on at 7 a.m., you're not getting paid until 7:03 a.m. If you clock on at 6:57 a.m., you're not getting paid till 7 a.m. Same for when you return from lunch. However, if you clock on at 7:04, after that 3-minute window, you begin getting paid immediately that minute. My boss was right. I need to plan better. I asked for a printout of my timestamps going back as far as they had record of, and I tallied up each day that I had arrived 3 minutes early and did not get paid for it. I counted well over 330 minutes within a 3-month span that I was not getting paid for, which ended up being a little over $110. I gave my old boss a copy and said, "You can pay me for these dates where I was in department on the dot without getting paid for it." My old boss then replied, "That's not how our company policy works." He then went into detail to explain to me exactly what I had already known and gave him a copy of. Yet, my old boss is now recognizing that he's contradicted himself and willingly lied to me. When everything clicked in his head that he's contradicted himself, it was far too obvious because his face went bright red and he started smiling, in my opinion, like he'd been caught. My old boss said, "Well, you know the policy. We can't pay you for that." I say, "Then I'll begin my shift when I am getting paid, not the minute you schedule me. It's not like you're losing labor if you're not even paying the employees that window of time. Schedule me at 7 if you like, but I will not be clocking on until 4 minutes after the scheduled time, as you will not be losing any cost of labor for it, and I will not be losing pay over your personal policy." For about 3 weeks, I clocked on 4 minutes late every day, no matter how early I arrived. I eventually got a warning from the building's HR that it's riding the line and very close to getting a write-up and down the discipline road. I explained to her the entire story, as she seemingly did not like this manager of mine either. She laughed pretty hard at the whole thing and offered me a department transfer with higher pay. She reminded me that my behavior was listed under a category that could get me terminated and thought the transfer would be a fresh start. Instead, I put in my 2 weeks notice and thanked her for the wonderful opportunity. The funniest part of all this is, years later, I saw my old manager working at a new chain in a similar position to what he was doing when I worked for him. He smiled, waved, I smiled, waved, continued on. As time went on, I also bumped into the old HR manager, who was working in an entirely different field. I asked her why my old boss left that company. She laughed and said, "He didn't leave. We fired him for time theft." Apparently, my old boss would take a lunch, leave the building, and never clock out for it. So not only was this guy trying to lie and manipulate people, but they were also just blatantly breaking the rules in their own time anyways. And then they just kind of turn around and get the same job elsewhere. You see that they got fired and you're like, oh, they got payback. But then you realize they're still working actively in the same role more or less. So did they really get that punished for it? Our next story is by Tumbleweed Good. Leave you alone and run the machines? With pleasure. I work at a CNC machine shop, and an order comes in for a part that needs repeated cuts with the part resting at a 45-degree angle relative to the cutting tool. This type of thing is normal for us, but this material was particularly hard on tooling. I suggested to the big boss that we take smaller cuts, but hey, what the freak do I know, right? Not fast enough, he says. It'll cut our profit margin, he says. Halfway through the first part, the mill starts making this atrocious screeching noise caused by vibration in the workpiece. We're talking jet engine levels of noise here, shaking the freaking earth levels of bad noise. I jam the feed hold button and walk into the office. Boss man flicks his noise-canceling headphones to one side. Why can't I hear the machine cutting? I explain that the cutter is screeching and we either need to redesign the fixture, the thing that holds what you're cutting, or lighten the cutting depth so we don't launch the machine in half of the shop into a low Earth orbit. Just lower the feed rate and keep going. I know that this isn't the problem, but hey, they're not my $100 cutters. Back to the machine I go, lower the feed override and hit start. Boom crash, 100 Washingtons down the toilet, shards of carbide everywhere, so I go back to the office. Didn't work, I tell him, we gotta change. He cuts me off mid-sentence. Look, he says, I'm busy making money. Make it work without changing the fixture. I don't want to see you again. Just as I'm about to ask if he's sure, he pops his headphone back on and resumes his, apparently, very profitable activities. So back to production I go. I finished all 40 parts, with the feed rate dutifully turned down with the max depth of cut. I broke a cutter every part or so, and by the end of the day, $4,000 worth of tooling was permanently destroyed. The best part? Each of the parts was only worth $40, and my boss bought the material. The next day, he's humming and hawing looking at the scrap carbide bin, which is just full to the tippy freaking top. What the heck happened here? I just shrugged and said, sorry boss, someone told me I wasn't to bother you, seeing as how you were making so much money. I've never seen someone come so close to blowing steam out of their ears. It's like, at some level, what does this guy think his job even is? Like, what is he actually there for? It seems pretty evident that he didn't seem too interested in actually doing his job. Well, I guess he realizes what happens if he disregards his obligations. And our final story of the day is by SD Beer Guy. Reading this post will take longer than this short but satisfying malicious compliance. In the United States, there's a massive chain of convenience stores called 7-Eleven. These stores have self-serve soda fountains where the drinks are called Gulp, Big Gulp, Super Big Gulp, etc. Customers can bring in their own reusable cups of the same size and volume to reduce waste by not using a new disposable cup every time they get a soda. Customers also pay a discounted price since the store is not selling a new cup. This is the required understanding to appreciate this minor malicious compliance. In college, I lived right next door to a 7-Eleven, so I was almost there every day. I had my refillable cup and filled it up with my regular beverage of choice. I noticed that their super big gulps, which are 44 ounces in size, were on sale for 79 cents. My refill cup was exactly that size. Normally, the super big gulps cost $1.49, but with a refill cup, they were only 99 cents. Quick side note, the person behind the counter today is not the usual cashier type. This is one of the owners of the franchised location. She's in there occasionally and she's very cool and businesslike in her demeanor. She doesn't smile and joke with the customers like most of the employees. I've heard her chastise her employees for no good reason. I head up to the counter to pay for my soda, and the boss lady rings me up for 99 cents, the cost of the refill. I said laughingly, "Hey, wait, the super big gulps are on sale for 79 cents. She replies very brusquely, "The price for the super big gulp is 79 cents. You have a refill, which is 99 cents. Your total is $1.07 with sales tax." And she holds out her hand expectantly. I was somewhat joking when I commented about the 79 cents because, like I said, I'm in there all the time, and it's only 20 cents we're talking about here. But her demeanor and curt reply rubbed me exactly the wrong way. I said, "You're telling me you're going to charge me 20 cents extra to use my own cup? Hold on one second." I leave my cup on the counter and trot the 20 feet to the soda fountain to grab a new cup and hustle back to the counter. Mind you, there are a couple people waiting in line behind me, so I'm hurrying, but I also know that I'm being a complete pain in the butt. I take the lid off my cup filled with soda and pour all of the soda into the new cup. She deletes the 99 cents on the cash register and rings me up for 79 cents. I pay her with a $1 bill and get my change. I said, "We're all done here, right?" And standing at the counter, I pour the soda from the new cup back into my refill cup. She says, "Oh, I'll take that for you," and holds out her hand for the now used cup. I said, "Oh yeah, you can claim credit for the damaged cup, right?" "No thanks, I'll keep it," and out the door I went. I know it's the most petty malicious compliance, but it was fun to do. I'm sure that she's like that with her employees, and there's absolutely nothing they can do in reply. I felt like I was giving her a hard time in their honor. Let's be honest, if you're going to any kind of public-facing place, and you get faced with a person who either is having a bad day or just hates people in general, and they just have that attitude where it's like, it's 79 cents for a regular, you're using a refill, so it's $1. Just the grumpiest attitude, treating you like you don't know anything. It makes you feel like, well, screw this, how can I get back at you somehow? It would make me want to trot over and grab a cup too. It never was about the 20 cents, it was about making a statement about your grumpy attitude. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.